Hi, I'm Jeff Ray, your host for Economic Outlook. Welcome to our show. We hope you make plans each week to join us as we discuss the region's most important economic development initiatives. Last year, the South Shore Line of the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District embarked on the largest projects they've undertaken in more than a century. The Westlake Corridor and the Double Track projects are well underway. We'll sit down with the South Shore leadership for some important updates coming up on Economic Outlook. The South Shore Line has been in the midst of more than $1.5 billion of improvements, all aimed at making your travels on the railroad quicker and safer. We're taking a closer look at what's happening at the South Shore today with Mike Nolan, the President and General Manager of the South Shore Line and of the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, and Senator David Niezgodski, an Indiana State Senator and former board member at NICTD. Welcome, guys. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
So it was about a year ago we had you here. We were talking a little bit about the big improvements happening up and down the line, and you've reached a couple important milestones since then, so we thought we'd have you come back to update our viewers. Want to come back, though, your way first, Mike, just for a quick intro, somebody not familiar with South Shore, kind of the high-level overview. What is the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District or the South Shore Railroad?
Sure. We're a 90-mile commuter railroad, actually commuter and intercity in one. A typical commuter rail line is 30 to 45 miles in length. And we have that certainly along our segment, but at 90 miles where we service South Bend, that's more of intercity kind of Amtrak type service. So we're two railroads in one. We take off out of the eastern terminal at South Bend International Airport, and we arrive at Millennium Station at the other end of our line in downtown Chicago. We have 13 stations, 12 of them are in Indiana. One of them on the other side is our station at Hegewisch in Illinois, and then we make a number of station stops on the metro system in Chicago.
Great. And how many years now for the South Shore?
South Shore dates really back, our official birthday is like 1908, so we're about 116 years old or so.
Wow. You know, it's interesting hearing old timers tell stories of going up for Cubs games or whatever. The railroad's been an important connection for a long time, and we'll get back to some improvements in a second. David, start your way. So you've been involved with this for a number of years as a board member, as a senator. Talk about what got you interested or excited about serving the South Shore.
Well, it was back in 1998. That's the year I was elected on the county council in St. Joseph County, and I was appointed at that time, my first year, on the NICTD board. And the first year I served, I mean, it was incredible. I can remember walking through the parking lot at Dune Park and saying, just what am I walking into right now? And as time went on, Jerry Hannes, the general manager then, at the beginning days, he would talk about the Westlake Corridor and the double tracking project, how this was, at this time, still just the beginning of a dream, and Congressman Visclosky's dream. It was amazing to be a part. The next year, I became chair of NICTD for the next 7 years, and we watched as this began to grow from an inception to a greater idea. Then I entered the legislature just shortly after that, all through these years that we have been working on that. But just in the last several years is when we've really stepped into, seeing the completion, date. I think it's May of 2025 for the Westlake Corridor, and for the double tracking, just officially Monday, and the train's beginning to run, and the new schedule's on Tuesday.
I love even sharing those stories for the people to help understand sometimes these projects take a really long time. You've got to plant seeds. Mike, you've had to do this patchwork quilt of funding and such. And so before we get into those projects, talk to us just a little bit about rail travel as a whole. What's happening around the country? I know there's been more funding and such. Give us just the temperature of what's happening around the country.
And I have the benefit of serving on a group called the Commuter Rail Coalition. It's all the rail CEOs around the country, and I actually get to chair it for the next couple of years, so that's a lot of fun. So we get together and talk all the time. We're all coming out of the pandemic and seeing the changes in the way business is run. And so there's a lot of hybrid activity where the traditional Monday through Friday commuter, that's really, for the most part, not the reality. The reality is that a good many employers are having their employees come in 2 to 3 days on average a week. And so we've seen some loss in ridership. We certainly are at about the 50% level of ridership pre-pandemic. And on average, that's probably what you're seeing around the country. We are all realizing that we need to serve a different customer. That our traditional delivery of service, which was really geared to the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour, which was, I don't know, 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning and 4:30 to 6:30 at night. Well, we had all our service there, and then we had a little bit of service on the outside. We need to spread that service out. We need to become more of a regional rail opportunity. We need to realize that those folks that are coming in for those 2 to 3 days a week, they might not be in their desks from 8 to 5. They might come in at 10 o'clock for a group meeting, go home at 2. So I need better service at 10 and 2. And fortunately for us, we're delivering that now with the new double track project. One of the big things that we did was we filled in gaps in our service during the day so that we're able to be competitive with the new and evolving workplace and go after that customer. Chicago is the most crowded city in the country, second most crowded highway system in the world. People are going into the downtown central business district. We need to give them a reason to get out of their cars and get onto our train, and we think with this new service delivery, it's coming.
You know, it's interesting you talk about the workforce, because I do think it's adapted a lot, and I think of that congestion, and so now, you know, instead of working 8 to 5, people are working 5 to 2 or something like that to try to avoid traffic, but you give them an alternative now that helps them work more traditional. So let's start to dive a little bit into projects. So the celebration this week has been related to double track. Some people have heard about that, understand it. Some don't know even what that means. Tell us a little bit about the double track.
Well, Dave's right. This has been, and when I made my remarks on Monday with the governor and 300 very excited people at our celebration at Miller Station, we've been dreaming about this project, maybe go back 100 years. And one day dreams become realities, and it was a long process to get here, but we got here. And essentially, the South Shore Railroad from Gary, Indiana to Chicago is a double track railroad, or think of two lanes that you can use of traffic going into Chicago and coming out of Chicago. But when we got to Gary and we headed east towards South Bend, we were pretty much a single road system. So you have two-way traffic on that, but if one train was coming one way, the other train had to wait maybe on a siding for the other train to clear. We have now added 26 miles of double track from Michigan City to Gary. So from 11th Street Station in Michigan City all the way downtown Chicago, we've got a double track railroad that allows us to use either track in either direction. If I've got a stall somewhere, if we've got a train that is needing mechanical issues on one track, I can move over to the adjacent track and pass it and then come back around. I didn't have that opportunity previously. If there's one track, everybody waits because that's all there is to it. And so it's a huge opportunity for us to improve our on-time performance because we don't have that single track bottleneck. It also allows us to run more limited express type service and more trains. So we started that on Tuesday, was the first really official unveiling of the new schedule, and we've been doing it for 3 days now. It's exciting to have this new infrastructure and be able to deliver what we've been promising for years.
David, I want to hop in a time machine and go back to those early days on the board when you're thinking about this. You know, it's interesting. I think sometimes as we're dreaming big about these things carry big price tags.
Oh, yes.
Takes a lot of folks. You know, so how do you bring the coalition together and sort of get them thinking about this? This may not happen today. This may happen 25 years from now. Just talk a little bit about some of the thinking that was happening around the board table in those days and how you fend off sort of that it's too expensive, we can never do this.
Right. Well, you know, what I remember very vividly is, especially serving as chair, you're sitting in the center and you're taking everything in, but the 4 counties that are involved, Lake, Porter, LaPorte, and St. Joseph County, that was probably truly the best board I have ever served on in my entire career, legislative or local government career. Everyone worked hand in hand. In those days, the dollar amounts we were talking about were probably much less than even half of what we're talking about now. So it was the current, or that was the former Congress people, it was the former United States senators, all the legislators, local government officials, all the community members, and take that into the present everyone working in such a cooperative way, I mean, that's truly the mark of excellence, and how generational economic development projects like this come to actually fruition.
So I want to jump on that,
Yeah.
if I may. Senator Young, who has been a huge supporter of the project, he brought then Secretary Elaine Chao out, and we met at South Bend International Airport. Congressman Visclosky was there. We had a lot of people there. And what we described for Secretary Chao was our funding mechanism. It consisted of local dollars, so you had South Bend and St. Joe contributing. You had Michigan City and Port County. You had the Northwest Indiana RDA. So the 4 counties were all contributing with a couple of cities. Then we had state money as well that was being thrown in, and then we have some money from NICTE that was, so it's not just one source. And so, and it was bipartisan. That, what struck Secretary Chao at the time was she heard local, county, state, everybody coming together, both Republican and Democrat, saying this is what we need to do. And it started at the grassroots, and had such grassroots support from people like the senator, from Mayor Buttigieg at the time, from the county councils and county commissioners, all the way up to our Northwest Indiana delegation, which, by the way, is a really powerful force when they get together with one common idea. Watching that happen in 2017 in the General Assembly when we got the double track funded was really unbelievable, because, you know, everybody's got their different ideas, but when you have a region as large as that come together and say this is what we want to do, it was absolutely remarkable. And the legislation that was passed, this is a huge dollar amount that came from the state. A big ask. Everybody, the senator knows this better than anybody, that everybody's got ideas, everybody's got asks, and this was a big ask. The vote in the House and the Senate was combined 145 to 5. Wow. Only 5 people out of 150 did not sign their name and say, by God, this is a great idea. So overwhelming support from the grassroots all the way up is what I would say.
And I'm going to give a lot of credit to Governor Holcomb too, because
absolutely.
of the governors I served with. He was the one that really, there were so many things that took place at that time, and you have to have the assistance of everyone to really succeed.
Well, I said on Monday too, you need everything I mentioned, and you need a project champion, and Governor Holcomb was that project champion. He stood with it. He identified it from the very beginning of his term. He stood with it through the changes in the federal government. First said we were going to be 50-50. You come up with 50%, and then they said, no, you're going to come up with 64%. We'll come up with 34%. Well, or 36. Yeah. That's a huge change in the funding mechanism. Some projects around the country might have gone, oh, whoa, that's huge. Not the state of Indiana, not Governor Holcomb, not the leadership, not the General Assembly. They said, okay, we get it. This is such a valuable project, so much support, so much opportunity for return on investment to the state. We're going forward.
Great. Guys, we're going to take a quick break here in the studio. We're going out to the field. George Lepiniotis is out at the South Shore Station at the South Bend International Airport. George, let me toss it to you.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm at South Bend Airport, and I'm joined by a longtime good friend of our show and our region, Bill Shalio. Bill, thanks for being with us.
No problem, George. Good
Bill,
to see you.
In your role as Economic Development Coordinator for the county, you're very familiar with the South Shore and the impact it can have and has had, and we hope it will continue to have for our region.
Yeah, South Shore has been a key element of our, of the community for 100 years, and we look to see with all these improvements, 100 more years of growth and development in the community.
Yeah, and the South Shore is a unique rail. It's a short line rail,
Certainly.
Right?
Yep.
It connects largely to the east. South Bend is the terminus, and we're standing here at the terminus currently. And then to the west, it goes all the way to downtown Chicago. It is a commuter line, but many people don't know it's also a freight line. So it serves both commuter traffic, transit traffic, but also serves to alleviate some of the congestion that rail can help with on our roads. What is it about the South Shore that requires or that is deficient. And this, well, you know, we've all heard a lot about double tracking, and double tracking is in the works as we speak, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, we're excited. The double track project just recently finished up, announced its completion after a couple years of work, and you know, a new schedule's been released for the double track program, so we got more trains coming through the region, so that's exciting. But it really is just the last piece. The last pieces now are how do we deal with things in St. Joseph County, whether it's a new station in New Carlisle or its end terminus point here at the airport. So I think a lot of things are coming down the road.
Now, when we talk about the airport, let's start there and say that, okay, currently the terminus is at the airport, and we're on the east side of the airport, which is unique because it literally, the train has to go all the way around. It actually passes the airport and then comes back in, which is, I've heard a statistic that it's about an additional 20-25 minutes to the ride just to get through the neighborhoods here in South Bend. There is potentially a plan. Is it potential? Is it real?
The plan is advancing. I think we'll see a lot of conversation over the summer and fall and into the winter with final design and final alignment and what it's going to look like as it comes into the airport. And it really is the last piece. I mean, the whole project with double track was not only about reliability and safety, but it was also about speed, you know, how you get from one end to the other. And if we can't solve that here in St. Joseph County, then the double track for us was really underwhelming as far as a project.
Yeah, and you know, when we look at the double track, it means that two trains, they no longer have to stop and wait for each other. They can just keep going side by side across two different tracks. As it comes in from the north side, currently the envision is that a new station will be built on the west side of the airport, creating efficiency in the travel. But then it's not just there. It actually is a double track going out from there. We talked about, you mentioned New Carlisle. What would be the impact? We know we've heard a lot about from your office and from the county about new developments. GM has announced, Amazon has announced. How would double tracking help that process?
Well, so again, the opportunity to get people to work and people into the site, whether it's construction workers for the construction period or employees for the long term. You know, we just are without a location at that point in time in the rail. But with more trains running back and forth between here in Chicago or even South Bend to New Carlisle, could be a great opportunity to move people in and out of that area for work and things.
That's awesome. What about the South Shore as part of the fabric of our community would you say we could look to in the future? I mean, you know, you talk about transit, you talk about these things, but really rail struggles in the United States. We are a car-based society. It does have an important role, though.
Oh, it certainly does. And I think as people get more comfortable with it, as the train becomes more reliable to people, to regular users and weekend users, you know, I think you're going to see a lot more people on it going up to Chicago for events or from Chicago coming here for events. And I think that's that connectivity that we've always enjoyed. You know, people coming back and forth, you know, so I think we're excited about the opportunities to grow that and really grow our region as part of that process.
Yeah, I know we've talked with airport officials about how important the South Shore can be to you know, the airport, and how it's just another mode of transportation that connects here at SBN. I know that previous South Bend mayors have had visions of the South Shore returning its transit all the way downtown South Bend to potentially serve Notre Dame and other facilities. That's a hard conversation, isn't it?
It is. It's a complicated one. I mean, obviously you have a beautiful train station downtown that doesn't have trains that go to it, and you've got the bus station next door to it. But really trying to get people to buy into downtown maybe is a longer term play. And so maybe there's an opportunity that train stops here and some other mode of transportation finishes that last mile to get you downtown.
Yeah, well, that's a creative way of looking at it. Bill, I appreciate you taking the time out. Always enjoyable to see you here at the airport. Always enjoyable to talk new projects. I know you're busy about this time, right? I mean, this is, St. Joe County is seeing unprecedented growth.
It's great for the whole region. We're seeing things all over the region, and we're just happy to play a part of that.
Thanks again. Thanks for being with us. Jeff, back to you in the studio, where you're going to talk more about the South Shore and how it impacts our economy and helps to ensure that we continue to see growth and ways to support it.
George, thank you. Always glad to have you out. I know you love the train, and so great to see you out there. So Mike, we'll come back to you. So you mentioned earlier we've just started the double track service. Talk to us a little bit about how it's going so far.
Yeah, it's like any new venture. It's a massive change. Every train time is different, and we have 14 new trains. Our customers are getting used to the fact that it's not a single track, it's a double track, and there's 2 platforms. It's been a learning curve for us, and we've had some bumps. And Tuesday wasn't where I wanted to be. Wednesday was a little bit better. Today was actually better. We're going to get there. But a couple of fun things. Train number 8, which is the train out of South Bend at 6 in the morning, set a record on Tuesday. Beat it on Wednesday. Did well today. We are at about an hour and 50 minutes on that train. It's the fastest we've ever done from South Bend to Chicago. And even the trains that didn't hit their schedule marks out of South Bend are better than the schedules that we had before, some of them by 15 to 20 minutes. Now we're going to get those times down to what's on the schedule, and we're not going to rest until that happens. And it's a new breaking in period for us, but it's an exciting time.
Mike, let me stick with you for a second, because we've teased and we talked a little about this South Bend to Chicago connection, but actually, as you and I have talked, it's the Michigan City to South Bend or South Bend to Ogden Dunes. Talk a little bit about just how people ought to be thinking about using this train.
Sure, you're right. Everybody thinks of the traditional to the central business district in Chicago. But now that we have high-level platforms in Michigan City, at Ogden Dunes, in Miller Beach, you can take the train, and if you got your bike, you can jump on the train. Bikes are on all year round now, and you can get off at Michigan City and ride to the beach, or take it to Miller Beach and go on over the beach there, or ride the trails up and down the system, or go wherever you want, because we now have high-level boarding, which is much better for our customers with disabilities, and now it makes bikes accessible there. So you can move anywhere on this, along the line, and don't have to go to Chicago to take advantage of the great things. The State Park is a great place to go, get bike train service there. So yeah, we encourage our residents to take full advantage of the South Shore and go to places in Indiana.
Mike, let's switch for a second and go to Westlake.
Sure.
So the Westlake corridor, just spend a minute, for folks who don't understand what that is, tell them what it is.
Sure, and that's actually the bigger of our 2 projects. It's a $950 million project that the Senator mentioned. It is a line extension from North Hammond down to Dyer, Indiana, about 8 miles long. A lot of it's up in the air, structure, and we'll finish it next May. And when we do and open up that service and open up opportunities to tap into the very fast-growing communities in western Lake County, Indiana, we will then have a second line into Chicago with stations at Munster Dyer, Munster Ridge Road, South Hammond, and at the Gateway Station in Hammond, opening up rail service to that whole area and bringing the opportunities for additional transit-oriented development that's following these train developments, and which is one of the reasons why we got a vote out of the General Assembly for 145 to 5, because the state's expecting at least a $2 return on every dollar that they've invested, probably more like 4.
Dave, let's come your way, because you sit in an important fiscal position down at the State House. You're making really difficult decisions. You have a long line of people who want money, but not nearly enough money to go to all projects. Just talk about why the General Assembly, you think, has bought in so much to Westlake and to double track. Why have those been so important to the 145 that voted yes?
I think a big part of that is just going back through the history, going back to my original days on NICTE. There was such cooperation. When you want to talk, we talked today about shovel-ready projects. This has been a project that they have been clearing and preparing and having shovel-ready for many, many years. So, I mean, to have the federal, state, and local support and have everyone buying in such a bipartisan way, yes, with the committees I serve on, with an appropriations committee, in the Senate working with Senator Ryan Mishler, obviously it's very, very good to have the appropriations chair from Northern Indiana. He can see firsthand just what that's doing. But yet the buy-in, I mean, people can see, truly throughout the state, in my case, I think people do look at, if you see something that's going to be monumental, why would you not do that for the state of Indiana? Because it's economic success for everyone.
Yep, Mike, in our last couple of minutes, because South Bend is still on people's minds a little bit. We've been talking about the double track will get us a few minutes, and some potential improvements in South Bend will at some point too. Just give us a quick update on what's happening there.
Sure, and we are working right now in the final stages of our engineering and our environmental to get to the west side of the airport. When we do that, we can shave another 13 to 15 minutes of travel time to and from, I'll use Chicago or some other destination in Indiana when we get that done. And in addition, last September, the NICTE board voted to amend our strategic plan to make it a phased project, so that phase 1 goes into the west side of the airport, phase 2 goes downtown, and we'll have an airport transfer station where folks who want to go to the airport get off on a platform, go into the airport, and people who want to go downtown will go downtown. So it is now part of our goal to get to downtown South Bend, which we've heard is very important, and we've adopted that from a board standpoint to make it happen. It's a process to make that happen, so we're excited about that. And we're excited about the opportunities to run a shuttle train between Michigan City and the west side of the airport to not only have the 6 trains a day each way from South Bend, but to have a shuttle from the 11th Street Station to the airport to add more service opportunities for residents in South Bend or residents from other parts of Northwest Indiana to take a train and get to the airport or to and from South Bend. So it's a really exciting time.
I would just like to add, I think that's very, very well said, because I think people are going to be able to choose where they want to live. So they'll be able to come to the GM plant, the GM Samsung battery plant to work. They're going to be able to come to the Amazon data center to come to work. They could be coming from Michigan City. And all of their travel commute time is going to be maybe less than an hour each way in many cases. So big deal.
Yep, Mike, in our last minute, give the pitch to somebody who hasn't been on the train for a while. Tell them why they encourage them to join you.
Sure, and especially from this region. Our average train time was about 2 hours and 35 minutes from South Bend to Chicago. Our average train time under our new schedule is planned to get down to 2 hours or less. So we really shaved that time. And our best trains out of South Bend are about 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's really good service. And we want to do better. So come and give us a try. We're rehabbing our cars. We've got Wi-Fi on the trains. We've got plugs in case you need to power up, and see what's out there. Check out the new South Shore line.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. I was glad to have you. Congratulations on your big project.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's it for our show today. Thank you for watching on WNIT or listening to our podcast. To watch this episode again or any of our past episodes, you can find Economic Outlook at WNIT.org or find our podcast on most major podcast platforms. We also encourage you to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. I'm Jeff Ray. I'll see you next time.
This WNIT local production has been made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.